The last guest at Cabin 13. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend. That's all I wanted. Just a couple of days away from work, my phone, and the constant noise of the city. I'd been scrolling through rental listings when I found Cabin 13. That name should have been enough to make me skip it, but the photos looked perfect. A small wooden cabin surrounded by pines, next to a lake, completely isolated. The kind of place where you could hear your own thoughts again. It was cheap, too. Way too cheap, actually. But I told myself maybe the number 13 scared people off. Maybe I was getting a discount for being rational. I booked it for 2 nights, Friday, October 13th, and Saturday. That date didn't even register with me until later. When I arrived, the sun was already low, turning the trees a kind of dull gold. The road had turned from asphalt to gravel miles ago, and I hadn't seen another car in nearly an hour. The cabin was smaller than I expected, almost like a hunting shack someone had tried to make livable. The windows were small and tinted, and the porch creaked under my boots. That's when I met the caretaker. He was sitting in an old pickup truck parked next to the cabin, maybe in his late 60s, wearing a faded flannel shirt and a cap with the logo of a gas station I'd never heard of. He watched me pull in without smiling. When I stepped out and waved, he got out of the truck, slow, like he wasn't thrilled to be there. "You the one renting 13?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. "You must be Henry, right?" He nodded, eyes narrowing slightly. "Thought they stopped listing this one." That made me pause. "What do you mean?" Henry scratched his neck. "Nothing. They just don't usually rent it out this time of year. Gets quiet out here. Too quiet for most." He said that last part while looking past me, toward the tree line. I laughed a little, but it came out awkward. Quiet's what I'm looking for. He didn't laugh back. Instead, he handed me a ring of old keys, the kind that still jingled with metal tags. "Generators in the shed out back if the power goes. And don't go down to the lake after dark." I almost asked why, but the tone in his voice stopped me. He turned and started back toward his truck. "Wait, is there Wi-Fi out here?" Henry stopped, hand on the door. "There's a phone inside. Landline. Doesn't call out, though. Just in." "In?" I repeated, but he just tipped his hat and drove off. Inside, the cabin smelled like old wood and dust. There was one small bed, a kitchenette, and a dusty radio sitting on a shelf. The landline he'd mentioned was mounted on the wall, one of those beige rotary phones that probably hadn't rung since the 90s. I unpacked, made some coffee, and sat out on the porch as the last bit of sunlight disappeared behind the trees. That's when I noticed something strange. Across the lake, there was another cabin, smaller, darker. At first, I thought maybe someone else had rented it, but it looked abandoned. No lights, no smoke, no movement. Then I saw something else. In the window, there was a faint shape. A person, maybe. Just standing there. I blinked, and it was gone. Inside again, I tried to shake it off, told myself it was my imagination, or maybe just my reflection in the lake. The radio picked up static when I turned it on, but I left it playing anyway. Anything to break the silence. Around 10 p.m., I heard the first knock. It was faint. Just a single thump against the front door. I froze, staring at it from across the room. Another knock followed, slower this time, heavier. I called out, "Hello?" No answer. The third knock made the coffee mug on the counter tremble slightly. When I finally opened the door, no one was there. Just the wind moving through the trees and the sound of the lake. But when I looked down, there was something on the porch. A wet footprint. Bare. Human. Facing toward the door. I didn't sleep much that first night. Every sound felt amplified. The ticking of the clock, the creak of wood, the whisper of branches brushing the windows. That footprint on the porch stayed burned in my mind. It wasn't there before I arrived, I was sure of that. But when I checked again in the morning, it was gone. Washed away by dew, or maybe just my imagination. At least, that's what I told myself. I brewed some instant coffee and sat at the small table by the window. The lake looked calm again, flat as glass. No sign of anyone in the cabin across the water. Still, I couldn't shake that feeling of being watched. Around noon, I decided to walk around the property, stretch my legs, maybe find cell service. Behind the cabin was a narrow path leading into the woods. The caretaker hadn't mentioned it, but curiosity got the better of me. The trail curved downhill until I reached the lake's edge. That's when I saw it up close. The other cabin. It was smaller than it looked from across the water, half sunk into the soil, the roof sagging under years of moss. I called out just in case anyone was there. Nothing. The door was hanging open slightly, so I stepped closer. Inside, it was like time had stopped. Cobwebs draped from the ceiling, and the air smelled like rot. There were muddy footprints on the floor, dried and dark. Several of them. And then I saw the calendar, pinned to the wall. The date circled in red ink, Friday the 13th. The year was 2010. 13 years ago. I backed out slowly, heart racing. Maybe it was just a coincidence, someone's weird joke. But as I walked back up the trail, I realized something else. The entire time I'd been near that second cabin, I hadn't heard a single bird. No wind, no insects, just silence. When I got back to my own cabin, the landline was ringing. I froze halfway through the door. It was an old rotary phone, the kind that shouldn't even be connected anymore. I picked it up. There was no voice, just a faint static, and then a sound I couldn't place, like dripping water. "Hello?" I said. No answer. Then through the static, a whisper. "You shouldn't be here." The line went dead. I tried to laugh it off, but it came out shaky. Maybe it was Henry messing with me, or some old interference from the phone line. I decided to drive into town, maybe get a beer and some signal. The problem was, when I got in my car, it wouldn't start. Battery light came on, but the engine didn't even click. I popped the hood, checked the cables. Everything looked fine. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. There were fingerprints on the windshield. Not mine. Smudged, greasy, like someone had pressed their face and hands against the glass from the outside, watching. And in the condensation near the edge, I could just make out a faint word traced with a finger. Stay. I didn't last long after that. I packed up, ready to leave on foot if I had to. But when I stepped outside, Henry's old pickup truck was parked at the end of the drive. He was sitting inside, staring at me. "Car trouble?" he asked when I walked over. "Yeah, it just died out of nowhere," I said. He nodded slowly. "They do that sometimes." "What do you mean?" Henry looked up at the sky for a moment, then back at me. "You went down to the lake, didn't you?" I didn't answer. He sighed. "You shouldn't have. That place," he stopped, glanced toward the trees. "It doesn't like to be disturbed." I stared at him. What the hell does that mean? He looked at me with this tired, heavy expression. "You're not the first person to rent cabin 13 on a Friday the 13th. Most don't make it through the night." I laughed nervously. "That's a great way to scare off customers." He didn't laugh. "I tried to get him to stop renting it out," he said, "but people don't listen. They think it's just a story, like you." He started the truck. "If you're smart, you'll pack up now and walk out before dark. There's a gas station 5 miles east. Someone there will give you a ride." Then he drove off again. That should have been enough for me to leave. But I didn't. Something about that second cabin kept pulling at me. The calendar, the footprints, the whisper on the phone. It didn't feel random. It felt personal. And that night, I decided to find out why. That second night was colder. The wind had picked up, and the trees groaned against each other like old bones. The cabin felt smaller somehow, like the walls had crept a little closer while I was gone. I made the mistake of looking out the window again around 9 p.m. Across the lake, a faint light flickered inside the other cabin, yellow, like an oil lamp. It should have been impossible. That place had no power, no sign of anyone for years. Still, the light moved, like someone walking with it from room to room. And then I heard it, faintly, through the glass and wind. A scream. It wasn't long, but it was sharp, real. I grabbed my flashlight and the cabin keys. I didn't even think. I just started running down the path toward the lake. The forest swallowed sound fast. The further I went, the quieter it got. The beam of my flashlight bounced off branches and fog, making every shadow look alive. When I reached the lake, the light was gone. The cabin stood silent again. But the door was open. I stepped inside, my flashlight cutting through the dust. Something had changed. The footprints on the floor were fresh again, wet. And there was a new object sitting on the table, a VHS tape, unmarked. Next to it was an old portable TV VCR combo, the kind that ran on batteries. I don't know why I pressed play. Maybe because I needed proof. Maybe because part of me already knew what I was going to see. The tape began with static. Then, faintly, an image faded in. The inside of my cabin. It was shot from the corner of the room, a fixed camera angle, like security footage. I saw myself sitting on the couch the night before, drinking coffee, scrolling through my phone. And then, the door opened behind me. I didn't move, didn't react. Someone walked in, a man, tall, wearing a hooded jacket, and stood over me for almost a full minute. Then the screen cut to static again. I staggered back, breathing hard. My flashlight flickered. That was impossible. I would have heard it. I would have seen. The static came back to life on its own. Now it showed a different scene, closer. The same man standing by my bed, watching me sleep, and behind him, through the window, a faint reflection, my own face. But I wasn't in bed. The timestamp in the corner read October 13th, 2010. I turned off the TV and stumbled outside, gasping for air. The moon was high, and the reflection on the lake looked wrong. It shimmered like something beneath the surface was moving. That's when I heard a sound behind me, a soft, rhythmic creak. I turned around. The cabin door was swinging slowly on its hinges back and forth, though there was no wind. Inside, the phone on the wall was ringing. Not in my cabin, in this one. I stepped back in and lifted the receiver. The same static, the same dripping sound. Then a whisper, closer now. He never left. The line clicked off. I ran. Didn't even grab the flashlight when it fell. Just bolted through the woods, the cold branches cutting my face, until I reached my own cabin again. The lights inside were on. I didn't leave them on. Through the window, I saw movement, someone pacing. I stood there for a moment, heart pounding, staring through the glass. The man inside turned toward the window. Same jacket, same height. And when he stepped closer, I saw his face. It was me. I fell back against the dirt, staring, unable to breathe. Inside, I turned and walked toward the door. That's when I remembered something Henry said earlier. Most don't make it through the night. I didn't wait. I sprinted to the shed, grabbed the gas can, and poured it around the cabin. My hands shook as I lit the match. The flames caught fast, rising through the dry boards. I stood there watching it burn, the heat pushing tears from my eyes. And for a second, through the flames, I swore I saw someone standing at the window, staring out. Me. When the fire department found the ruins in the morning, they said no one had been staying there for years. The last registered renter was a man named Daniel Reeves. Disappeared in 2010. They showed me the booking form. Same date, same cabin. Same name.
I didn't tell the police everything. What was I supposed to say? That I burned a cabin because I saw myself inside it? They'd already looked at me like I was crazy. They said there was no record of any recent rental, no online listing, no caretaker named Henry. But I met him. I talked to him. They found tire marks where his truck had been parked, but the trail ended halfway down the road, like the vehicle had vanished into thin air. And the strangest part? They said the VHS tape I told them about was just a melted lump of plastic in the ashes. No footage, no evidence, nothing. After the fire, I checked into a motel in the nearest town. Couldn't bring myself to drive home yet. I just needed one night to think, to sleep. I remember sitting on the bed, staring at the wall, feeling like I'd walked out of a nightmare that wasn't finished yet. Then the motel phone rang. It was the same tone, that same slow ring that made my chest tighten instantly. When I picked it up, there was silence for a few seconds. "Who is this?" I whispered. No answer. Then, faintly, "You left the door open." The line went. I didn't sleep that night either. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was just trauma or stress. I went to the sheriff's office. When I asked if Henry had been there, he said, "You mean up by Breakwater Lake?" "Yeah," I said, "cabin 13. He turned to his computer, typed something, and then stopped. That place was condemned 13 years ago, after the fire. I stared at him. "You mean the one last night?" He shook his head. "No, son, the one back in 2010. I drove back that afternoon. I don't even know why. Maybe I needed to see for myself that it was gone, that I wasn't losing my mind. The forest was quiet again. The gravel road was still there, but overgrown. When I reached the spot where the cabin should have been, there was nothing. Just blackened ground and moss. No ashes, no smell of smoke, no sign that anything had burned recently. But something new had appeared. A wooden sign nailed to a tree. Property of Reeves family in memory of Daniel, 1983 to 2010. My stomach turned cold. I walked closer, tracing the letters with my hand. That's when I heard the creak of a door hinge behind me. Except there were no doors. When I turned, cabin 13 was standing there again, perfectly intact. Smoke curled gently from the chimney, and a light glowed faintly through the window. The porch steps creaked as I walked closer. I couldn't stop myself. Inside, everything was exactly the same. The coffee mug on the counter, the radio humming static, the landline on the wall. And on the table, another VHS tape. This one had a label, in my handwriting. Friday 13. I didn't press play this time. I just stood there staring at it, realizing what it meant. That cabin wasn't haunted by anyone else. It was haunted by me. Every 13 years, it called someone back, someone who shared the same name, the same bloodline, maybe even the same guilt. And this time, it was my turn. It was almost midnight when I heard it. A soft, distant knock. Once. Then again. The air went still. I turned toward the door. Another knock. Then another. I counted them without meaning to. 1, 2, 3, the sound echoing like it was coming from inside the walls. By the time I reached 13, the door handle was turning. I whispered, "Who is there?" And a voice, my own voice, whispered back, "The last guest." The tape was found later that week by a group of hikers inside a half-collapsed cabin deep in the woods. The local paper said it showed a man talking to someone off-screen, though the other person's face never appeared. The last thing on the recording was the sound of 13 slow knocks, followed by silence. They never identified the man, but the timestamp on the tape read October 13th, 2023, 12:59 a.m.